The morning sky above the Valerian capital burned red as the enemy fleet broke through the outer defenses. Queen Zara stood at the massive crystal windows of her throne room, watching her ships scatter across the violet heavens like frightened birds. The sight made her heart sink with despair. "Your Majesty, we must leave now," Captain Vex called from behind her. The tall Valerian warrior's blue skin had turned pale with fear, his natural armor plates shifting nervously. Around him, the elite royal guard moved restlessly, their eyes fixed on the exits. Zara turned away from the window. Her own people, the strongest warriors in the Empire, were already planning their escape. All except one. David Chen stood motionless near the throne, checking his pulse rifle with calm precision. The human was smaller than the Valerian guards, lacking their thick skin and enhanced muscles. His brown hair was cut short in military style, and his dark eyes showed no fear as he watched the approaching enemy ships. The palace shook as the first enemy bomb struck the outer walls. Dust fell from the golden ceiling, and several guards jumped at the sound. David did not move. "The Krex fleet has broken our line," reported Lieutenant Mora, her voice shaking. "Their landing ships are heading for the palace grounds. We have maybe 20 minutes before they breach the main doors." Queen Zara felt cold fear grip her chest. The Krex were known across the galaxy as destroyers. They took no prisoners, especially not royal ones. Their red ships brought death to every world they touched. "The escape tunnels are clear," Captain Vex said urgently. "We can reach the spaceport through the underground passages. Your ship is waiting." "What about the city?" Zara asked. "The people who cannot escape." Vex looked uncomfortable. "Your Majesty, we cannot save everyone. You must survive to lead the resistance." The palace shook again, harder this time. Through the windows, Zara could see the first Krex landing ships touching down in the royal gardens. Black smoke rose from the city below as enemy fighters strafed the streets. "We need to move now," urged Guard Commander Rex, a massive Valerian with scarred armor. "Every second we wait makes escape harder." David finally spoke, his voice quiet but clear. "How many Krex troops in the first wave?" Lieutenant Mora checked her scanner. "At least 2,000, maybe more. They are forming up in the courtyard." "And how long until Admiral Kor's fleet arrives?" 6 hours, if they break through the enemy blockade." David nodded thoughtfully. "Then someone needs to hold this position for 6 hours." The Valerian guard stared at him in shock. Captain Vex laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Human, you speak madness. No one can hold against 2,000 Krex warriors." "Maybe not," David agreed. "But the throne room has good defensive positions. Narrow doorways, strong walls. If they think the Queen is still here, they will focus all their troops on this location instead of searching the tunnels." Queen Zara understood immediately. The human was proposing to sacrifice himself to save her. "David, I cannot ask you to do this." "You are not asking, Your Majesty. I am volunteering." The building shook as Krex demolition charges blasted through the main palace doors. Distant sounds of battle echoed through the corridors as the remaining palace guards tried to slow the invasion. "This is insane," Captain Vex declared. "Human, your species joined our empire only 5 years ago. You owe us nothing. Save yourself." David looked at the Valerian captain with steady eyes. "When humans give their word, we keep it. I swore an oath to protect the Queen." "Oaths mean nothing when you are dead," Rex growled. "They mean everything when you are alive," David replied. The sounds of fighting grew closer. Pulse weapon fire echoed from the main corridor leading to the throne room. The Krex were cutting through the palace defenses like a hot knife through ice. Queen Zara made her decision. "Captain Vex, prepare the escape route. Take the royal data crystals and the crown jewels. What about you, Your Majesty?" "I will follow in a few minutes." She walked over to David. "Human, you do not have to do this. David smiled, and for a moment he looked very young. Your Majesty, my grandfather fought in the human-AI wars. My father died defending Earth from the Zephyr invasion. My family has always stood between evil and the innocent. But this is not your world. I am not your queen by birth. You became my queen when I took the oath. That makes this my world too. The throne room doors exploded inward. Krek's warriors in black armor poured through the opening, their red eyes glowing with bloodlust. They carried heavy plasma rifles and moved with deadly precision. Go! David shouted, diving behind the throne as pulse fire filled the air. Queen Zara ran for the hidden passage behind the throne, her heart breaking as she left the brave human behind. Captain Vex grabbed her arm and pulled her into the tunnel just as a plasma bolt scorched the wall where she had been standing. The last thing she saw was David rising from cover to return fire, his face calm and determined as enemy warriors charged toward him. The tunnel system beneath the palace was ancient, built by the first Valerian kings as an escape route during times of war. Queen Zara followed Captain Vex through narrow stone passages lit by emergency lights. Behind them, the sounds of battle raged above. The human cannot survive, Lieutenant Mora whispered as they hurried through the tunnels. The Kreks will overwhelm him in minutes. But the fighting continued. Pulse weapon fire echoed through the stone walls, punctuated by the distinctive crack of David's rifle. Somehow, the human was still alive. They reached a junction where several tunnels met. Captain Vex checked his scanner and cursed. Krek's troops at the spaceport. They have surrounded the area. What about the emergency bunkers? Asked Rex. Also surrounded. They have blocked every exit. Queen Zara felt despair wash over her. The escape tunnels were useless if the Kreks controlled every exit point. They were trapped underground while their enemies owned the surface. We should go back, suggested Lieutenant Mora. Find another way out. There is no other way, Vex replied grimly. The Kreks have planned this well. Above them, an explosion shook dust from the tunnel ceiling. The battle in the throne room continued, but it sounded different now. Less intense, more controlled. As if someone was managing the fight instead of simply surviving it. Queen Zara touched her communication device. David, can you hear me? Static filled the tunnel, then the human's voice came through, slightly out of breath but steady. Your Majesty, are you clear of the palace? We are in the tunnels, but the exits are blocked. The Kreks have surrounded the spaceport. A pause, filled with the sound of weapons fire. Understood. I will keep them busy up here. David, how many enemies are you facing? Another pause. Enough to keep me entertained. Captain Vex grabbed the communicator. Human, you must retreat. This is hopeless. Negative, Captain. As long as they think the Queen is trapped in the throne room, they will focus their entire force on this position. That keeps them away from the tunnel searches. The truth hit Queen Zara like a physical blow. David was not just holding a defensive position. He was deliberately making himself a target, drawing every Kreks warrior to the throne room to give her time to escape. But you cannot hold them forever, she said into the device. I do not need forever, Your Majesty. Admiral Kor's fleet will break through in about 5 hours. I just need to keep our visitors entertained until then. Lieutenant Mora stared at the communicator in disbelief. He thinks he can hold 2,000 warriors for 5 hours. He is buying us time, Queen Zara realized. David knows he cannot win. He is sacrificing himself to save us. The communication crackled again. Your Majesty, I need you to listen carefully. The Kreks commander is named General Thax. He is in the main courtyard coordinating the attack. If Admiral Kor's ships can target his position when they arrive, the enemy force will lose coordination. How do you know this? I can see him from the throne room windows. Big ugly fellow with lots of medals. Hard to miss. Despite everything, Queen Zara almost smiled. Even facing impossible odds, the human was gathering intelligence for the counterattack. "David, why are you doing this?" she asked softly. A longer pause this time. When David spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. "Your Majesty, when humans first met the Valerians, your people could have enslaved us. Earth was weak, our technology primitive. Instead, you offered us partnership. You gave us a place in the galaxy." Pulse fire echoed through the communicator. "When I joined the Royal Guard, I swore to protect the crown. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because your empire gave my people hope." Another explosion shook the tunnel. Queen Zara pressed herself against the stone wall, imagining the battle raging above. One human against an army, fighting not for conquest or glory, but for loyalty and honor. Besides, David added, and she could hear the smile in his voice, someone needs to show these Kreks what happens when they threaten our friends. The hours crawled by like wounded animals. Queen Zara and her guards huddled in an ancient bunker deep beneath the palace, listening to the battle above. Somehow, impossibly, the fighting continued. David's voice came through the communicator every hour, updating them on enemy movements and giving tactical information for the coming counterattack. How is this possible? Rex wondered aloud. No single warrior can hold against such numbers. Humans are different, Queen Zara said quietly. We thought we understood them, but we were wrong. Captain Vex was monitoring fleet communications on his scanner. Admiral Kor's ships are fighting through the blockade. They should reach us in 2 hours. Can David hold that long? Asked Lieutenant Mora. The communicator crackled to life. Your Majesty, I hope you are comfortable down there. Things are getting interesting up here. The sound of weapons fire was constant now, punctuated by explosions and the crash of falling debris. Queen Zara could hardly believe the human was still alive, much less still fighting. David, how many Kreks have you defeated? Hard to count in all this excitement. But I think General Thax is getting frustrated. He keeps sending more troops into the throne room instead of spreading out to search for you. You are wounded, Queen Zara stated. She could hear the strain in his voice. A few scratches. Nothing serious. But she knew he was lying. No one could fight for 4 hours without taking damage. David was probably bleeding badly, running low on ammunition, and exhausted beyond measure. Yet he continued to hold his position. Your Majesty, David said suddenly, I need to tell you something important. What is it? The Kreks are not just here for conquest. They are specifically hunting you. General Thax has orders to capture you alive. Queen Zara felt ice in her veins. How do you know this? I have been listening to their communications. They want to use you as leverage against other worlds. If they take you prisoner, dozens of systems will surrender without fighting. The implications were staggering. The Kreks invasion was not just about one world. They were trying to break the entire Valerian Empire by capturing its leader. Then I cannot be taken alive, Queen Zara said quietly. No, David replied firmly. You will not be taken at all. Admiral Kor will arrive in 90 minutes. I will hold until then. David, you have already done more than enough. You have given us time to plan a counterattack. You can retreat now with honor. Your Majesty, humans do not retreat when their friends are in danger. We hold the line no matter what. Another explosion rocked the palace. This time, the communicator went silent for several long minutes. Queen Zara stared at the device, fearing the worst. Finally, David's voice returned, weaker but still determined. Sorry about that. Had to relocate to a better position. The throne room has fallen? Captain Vex asked. Not fallen. Just rearranged a bit. I am now operating from the ceremonial balcony. Nice view of the courtyard from here. Queen Zara closed her eyes. The human had been forced to give ground, but he was still fighting. Still holding the Krek's attention. Still buying them precious time. 1 hour until Admiral Kor arrives, Lieutenant Mora reported. David, can you hold for 1 more hour? Your Majesty, I will hold as long as you need me to. But Queen Zara could hear the exhaustion in his voice. The human was reaching his limits. One man could only do so much against an army. When this is over, she promised, you will have any reward you wish. David laughed softly. Just promise me one thing, Your Majesty. Anything. When you rebuild the palace, put up a plaque somewhere. Let people know that humans keep their promises. The communicator went quiet. Above them, the battle raged on as one brave human held the line against impossible odds, buying time for his queen and proving that courage had no limits. David pressed his back against the marble column and checked his rifle's power cell. 20% remaining. Around him, the once beautiful throne room looked like a battlefield. Valerian crystal statues lay shattered on the floor, and scorch marks covered the golden walls. Smoke drifted through the air, making his eyes water. The Kreks had been attacking for 4 hours now. Wave after wave of black-armored warriors had charged through the main entrance, only to fall to David's precise shooting. The human had used every trick he knew, turning the throne room's architecture into a maze of death traps for the invaders. But he was running out of time and ammunition. General Thax's voice boomed across the courtyard below, speaking in the harsh Krek's language. David did not understand the words, but the tone was clear. The enemy commander was growing angry at his troops' failure to capture one human defender. David smiled grimly. Good. Angry commanders made mistakes. He moved to a new position behind the Queen's ceremonial podium, staying low to avoid the pulse fire that constantly swept the room. 3 more Krek's warriors were advancing through the rubble, their red eyes scanning for targets. David waited until they were in the perfect position, then fired 3 quick shots. The warriors dropped, their armor smoking. But immediately, more enemies appeared to replace them. His communicator buzzed softly. David, this is Admiral Kor. My fleet is breaking through the blockade. Hold your position for 30 more minutes. Understood, Admiral, David whispered back. The Queen is safe in the underground bunkers. General Thax is in the main courtyard with approximately 50 command staff. Copy that. We will target his position first. David's rifle clicked empty. He ejected the power cell and slammed in his last spare. 5% power. Maybe enough for 10 shots if he was careful. More Krek's troops poured into the throne room. David counted at least 20 warriors, all advancing in a coordinated assault. Too many to stop with his remaining ammunition. He looked around the destroyed room, searching for options. His eyes fell on the ancient ceremonial weapons mounted on the wall behind the throne. Valerian energy swords, designed more for ceremony than combat, but still functional. David sprinted across the open floor, pulse bolts sizzling past his head. He reached the wall display and grabbed 2 of the glowing blue blades just as Krek's warriors rounded the corner. The first warrior raised his rifle to fire, but David was already moving. The energy sword cut through the alien's weapon like paper, then found his neck. The second warrior swung a massive war club, but David ducked under it and drove his blade into the creature's chest. More enemies appeared. David fought like a man possessed, the energy swords weaving patterns of blue light as he cut down one attacker after another. But for every Krex he defeated, 2 more took their place. A pulse bolt grazed his shoulder, spinning him around. Another struck his leg, sending him stumbling. David's strength was failing, but he kept fighting. The Queen was counting on him. General Thax himself appeared in the doorway, a massive Krex with scarred black armor and glowing red cybernetic implants. The alien commander carried a weapon that looked more like a cannon than a rifle. Human, Thax spoke in accented galactic standard, you have cost me many warriors. Surrender now and I will make your death quick. David straightened up, blood running down his arm. Sorry, General. Humans do not surrender to bullies. Thax raised his massive weapon. Then die slowly. The cannon fired, but David had already thrown himself behind the queen's throne. The energy blast vaporized the ancient crystal chair, showering him with glowing fragments. You cannot hide forever, human, Thax called. My troops will flush you out. David closed his eyes and listened to the sounds outside. Footsteps on stone. Weapons being prepared. Commands being given in the Krex language. At least 30 enemies surrounding his position. Then he heard something else. A deep rumble from the sky above. Admiral Kor's fleet had arrived. The palace shook as Valerian warships began bombarding Krex positions throughout the city. David could hear enemy fighters screaming overhead, chased by friendly interceptors. The sounds of space battle filled the air. General Thax, David called out, your reinforcements are not coming. The Krex commander snarled. Kill him. Find the queen. But David had one more card to play. He activated his communicator on the emergency frequency, broadcasting to every Valerian ship in the system. This is David Chen, Royal Guard. Queen Zara is safe in Bunker 7 beneath the palace. General Thax is in the throne room with 30 troops. Palace coordinates mark 77 Alpha. The response was immediate. David, this is Admiral Kor. Get clear of the throne room in 60 seconds. David looked around at the destroyed chamber where he had made his stand. Getting clear would mean abandoning his position, but the queen was safe now. His job was almost done. He grabbed a broken piece of crystal from the floor and threw it across the room. As the Krex troops turned toward the sound, David sprinted for the side entrance he had been guarding for hours. Pulse fire chased him down the corridor. Behind him, General Thax roared commands in his alien language. David could hear heavy boots pounding on marble as the entire Krex force pursued him. He reached the intersection where 3 hallways met and dove through the doorway just as the palace shook with a tremendous explosion. Admiral Kor's ships had found their target. When the dust settled, David crawled back to look. The throne room was gone, replaced by a smoking crater. General Thax and his command staff had been wiped out in a single orbital strike. David leaned against the wall and allowed himself to smile. The queen was safe. The Krex command was destroyed. His mission was complete. Then he heard footsteps in the corridor. Valerian soldiers in gleaming armor appeared around the corner, their weapons ready. Behind them walked a tall figure David recognized from military broadcasts. Admiral Kor, David said, trying to stand at attention despite his wounds. The admiral was an impressive Valerian, his blue skin marked with the scars of many battles. His silver armor bore the symbols of the royal fleet, and his eyes held the wisdom of long command experience. David Chen, Admiral Kor said, you look terrible. David laughed, then winced as the movement pulled at his injuries. Thank you, sir. Mission accomplished. Indeed it was. Queen Zara is being escorted to safety as we speak. The Krex invasion force is in full retreat. Medical teams rushed forward to tend to David's wounds, but the admiral held up a hand to stop them for a moment. David, I need to know. How did you hold this position for so long against such numbers? David thought about the question. How could he explain what had driven him to fight beyond all reasonable hope? How could he make the admiral understand the human concept of duty? Admiral, when my people make a promise, we keep it. I promised to protect the queen. Everything else was just details. Admiral Kor stared at the human for a long moment. And the fear? You felt no fear facing such odds. I felt plenty of fear, David admitted. But being afraid does not mean giving up. It means finding courage anyway. The medical team finally reached David and began treating his wounds. He had been hit by pulse fire 7 times, but his armor had absorbed most of the damage. Exhaustion and blood loss were his main problems now. As they worked on him, David heard familiar voices approaching. Queen Zara emerged from a side tunnel, flanked by Captain Vex and her remaining guards. She had dirt on her royal robes and worry in her eyes. "David," she called, rushing toward him. "Your Majesty," David tried to bow, but the medical technicians held him down. "Do not move, you stubborn human," Queen Zara commanded. "You have been wounded enough for one day." She knelt beside him, ignoring the protests of her guards about royal dignity. "David, what you did today will be remembered forever. You saved not just my life, but the entire empire." "Just doing my job, Your Majesty." "No," Queen Zara said firmly. "You did far more than any job required. You showed us what true loyalty means." Captain Vex stepped forward, his expression ashamed. "Human, I owe you an apology. I called you weak, but you proved stronger than any of us." "You are not weak, Captain," David replied. "You are a good soldier who was thinking about tactics and survival. Nothing wrong with that. But you stayed when we ran." David shook his head. "You did not run. You protected the Queen by getting her to safety. That was the smart thing to do. I just chose a different way to help." Admiral Kor had been listening to this exchange with great interest. "David, Queen Zara has told me about your actions today. Such courage deserves recognition." "Admiral, I do not need medals or rewards. Protecting the Queen was reward enough. Nevertheless, the Crown wishes to honor you." "What would you ask for, if you could have anything?" David thought about this question. He could ask for wealth, or a promotion, or land on a beautiful world. But those things did not matter to him. "Admiral, I would like permission to continue serving as the Queen's Guard. And maybe we could train more humans for the Royal Protection Unit. My people understand duty." Queen Zara smiled. "David, you will not just continue serving as my guard. You will lead the entire Royal Protection Force. And yes, we will recruit more humans. But Your Majesty, I am not qualified to command. The other guards have more experience." "Experience is important," Admiral Kor agreed. "But character is more important. Today you showed character that cannot be taught or trained. It simply exists, or it does not." The medical team finished treating David's wounds and helped him to his feet. He was weak but mobile, and the pain was manageable. "Your Majesty," David said, "there is something else. During the battle, I monitored Krek's communications. This invasion was not random. They have been planning attacks on 12 other worlds in the Empire." Queen Zara's expression grew serious. "Tell me everything." David shared all the intelligence he had gathered during the long battle. Troop movements, fleet positions, target worlds, and timing. His information would allow the Empire to prepare defenses and save millions of lives. "How did you think to gather this information while fighting for your life?" Admiral Kor asked. "Part of the job, sir. A guard must always be aware of threats to the Crown." Captain Vex laughed, but this time with genuine respect. "Human, you are either the luckiest warrior in the galaxy or the most prepared." "Preparation makes its own luck," David replied. They made their way through the damaged palace toward the landing pad where Admiral Kor's ship waited. The city around them showed signs of the brief but violent battle. Smoke rose from several districts, but Valerian emergency teams were already at work. "The damage could have been much worse," Queen Zara observed. "If the Kreks had captured me, they would have had time to establish a permanent occupation." "They never had a chance to capture you," David said. "That was never going to happen." "How can you be so certain?" David stopped walking and looked directly at his queen. "Your Majesty, humans have a saying. We never leave our friends behind. Once you accepted my people into the Empire, you became our friends. Friends protect each other." Admiral Kor nodded approvingly. "I think I understand humans better now. You fight not just for duty or honor, but for love." "Love?" David asked. "Love of justice. Love of protection for the innocent. Love of keeping promises. These are powerful motivations. They reached the ship, but before boarding, Queen Zara turned to address the gathering crowd of Valerian citizens. Word of the human guard's heroic stand had spread quickly, and people wanted to see the warrior who had saved their queen. My people, Queen Zara called out, today we learned that courage comes in many forms. Our new friends from Earth have shown us that size and strength matter less than heart and determination. The crowd cheered, and David felt embarrassed by the attention. He had simply done his job. From this day forward, the Queen continued, humans will serve as the personal guards of the royal family. They have proven themselves worthy of our complete trust. Later, as they traveled through space toward the temporary capital, David sat in the ship's medical bay while doctors completed his treatment. Queen Zara sat nearby, still wearing her dirt-stained royal robes. David, may I ask you a personal question? Of course, Your Majesty. When you realized you might die today, what did you think about? David considered this question carefully. I thought about my family, who taught me to keep my word. I thought about my planet, which you gave a place among the stars. And I thought about you, trusting me to keep you safe. Were you afraid? Terrified, David admitted. But fear just meant I was still alive and still fighting. Queen Zara smiled. I think humans and Valerians will learn much from each other. I hope so, Your Majesty. We have much to offer each other. As the ship traveled through hyperspace, David looked out at the stars and thought about the future. Today had changed everything. Humans would now be trusted with the Empire's most important responsibilities. His people had proven themselves as loyal allies and true friends. But more than that, David had learned something important about himself and his species. When everything was lost and hope seemed impossible, humans found a way to keep going. They held the line not because victory was certain, but because holding the line was right. Admiral Kaur appeared in the doorway of the medical bay. David, I have received reports from across the Empire. News of your stand has inspired resistance movements on all 12 worlds the Kreks plan to attack. The people are fighting back instead of surrendering. That is good news, Admiral. It is more than good news. It may have saved the Empire. Your actions today did more than protect one queen. You showed the galaxy what humans are capable of. David nodded but said nothing. He was thinking about the plaque Queen Zara had promised to put up in the new palace. What should it say? How could anyone capture in words what had really happened today? Finally, he had an idea. Your Majesty, I know what the plaque should say. Tell me. Here stood a human who kept his promise. Queen Zara smiled. Perfect. Simple and true. As the ship continued its journey through space, David closed his eyes and rested. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats to face and new promises to keep. But tonight, he had done his duty. He had proven that humans belonged among the stars. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans made friends, those friendships lasted forever. And when they made promises, those promises were kept no matter the cost.